Hi, everyone, and welcome to Our Disabled Future, a series where disabled voices lead the way. I'm your host, Nico. It is a good day for disability inclusion. Each day during Disability Pride Month and beyond, I'm amplifying real disabled voices, where we are, where we want to go, and how we'll build the future we deserve. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Kat. Let's dive in. Hi, Kat. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's dive right in. Kat, tell us about yourself and about your disabled life.
Of course. Hi, my name is Kat Cantillo. My pronouns are she, they interchangeably. I'm a white non-binary person with black large rectangle glasses, dirty blonde hair, but that is more brown now as I age. My hair is messy curly, longer in the front, shorter in the back type of hairstyle. I'm wearing a light heather gray shirt with the words, I speak fluent honesty. It's a shirt I created. But yes, I'm proudly disabled. I'm a queer person who is married to their soulmate, and someone I honestly didn't think existed. I all my life I just thought I wanted someone to love me as much as I love them, and I thought I would never find that. But I did. So it makes me very happy, and I love to share our love. Um, and together we are cat guardians. We have two very different but very beloved companions. Fury, our Velcro Bombay kitty, named after How to Train a Dragon, and Callie, our snow-spotted Bengal. She's got blue eyes. But yeah, so that's my family that I love to share. I am I'm autistic and newly diagnosed with ADHD. So ADHD is the terminology, which can be a chaotic and sort of beautiful mix. Some days my brain is full of structure and patterns and deep focus, and other days the executive functioning is out the window, and I struggle with just like trying to keep one tab up at a time in my brain. But I was diagnosed with autism at 18 after years of bullying and never really truly understanding why I did the things I did and why people would point out these things and then really hurt me with that. I was diagnosed with learning disabilities like auditory processing disorder and specific learning disabilities when I was when I was younger, but nothing explained like why I didn't get sarcasm, why people would like point out the fact that okay, you never really speak, you don't really look at me when you're speaking and you're looking over there. I'm fully engaged in the conversation, right? But like I'm just not looking at the person, and I just never had the answer. I was like, I have no idea why I do that. It's just who I am. But through all of the years of bullying, which was far too many, um I tried to never give up, but it got to the point where it was just like, wow, this is really heavy. I really don't know what's going on, and nothing explains it. So I told my speech therapist in my senior year of high school, I don't think I'm going to be here tomorrow. And she was like, why? I was like, I can't deal with this anymore. I don't understand. And I say that because it was literally life-changing moment. I started to see a psychiatrist who also was autistic, and her son was autistic, and I finally found myself, and I was like, oh, the pieces of the puzzle, everything sticks together. And it was a great learning experience, just learning about who I am. And then I finally understood, oh, I don't really care about the bullies, at that point in time, because now I understood myself. And that really was like, in my mind, the goal. Um, but I like to go back a little bit further to when I was younger. I did want to start with that at least. But when I was younger, I didn't speak until I was 4. And my mom was like, I think I think she's deaf. And um, so I started speech therapy when I was like 3. And the first language I learned was sign language. which I don't fully know now, but I know the basic signs. And um, and my mom's like, well, if she is, it is what it is, like we just want to understand my child. And I did speech therapy, of course, all the way until I graduated high school. But they had learned that I was actually, which is ironic, they didn't diagnose me with autism at this time. It doesn't make any sense. But then again, female, assigned female at birth, people tend to not get diagnosed with autism earlier on. So it makes sense. It just stinks because it maybe would have changed my life dramatically. But I didn't speak and I would just scream and cry when loud things would happen. Or the one thing I can remember, even like it was yesterday when I was 5 years old and people were singing happy birthday. And I would be my fingers in my ears just screaming like, please stop, please stop, please stop. And I'm like, wouldn't you have known at that point in time to just don't sing happy birthday because it hurt my ears? But there's a lot of other stories my family shared with me that just makes sense now. But yeah, I was in special education my whole life. And for anyone who was in special education understands that they never actually believe in you. They don't think that you can do anything. And they deem you just like I was told, don't worry about college. You're never going to take your SATs. Just don't worry about that. You're just going to work in a warehouse. And I was like, what? How do you know that about me? Like, just because I'm struggling in high school doesn't define my whole life, right? But yes. Uh, and then another couple of things. In the last couple of years, I was diagnosed with several chronic illnesses. And they like rheumatoid arthritis, misconnected tissue disease, hypermobility Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And this is important because I used to be a very able body, could go hiking, could go walking. I used to live in the middle of nowhere in New Jersey, and there was nothing to do. And I lived on top of a mountain. So I would walk from there all the way down this like very windy, like in the middle of the nowhere, back roads. I got to the highway, Route 23, and I walked there and then I turned around and walked back home. That was basically all I could do. And I say that because I've lost my mobility. And in the last 9 years of fighting and saying like, hey, there's something going on, doctors literally just saying, oh, it's in your head. You should go see a psychiatrist. I see a psychiatrist. I'm not ashamed of that, but like I got anxiety and there's nothing that else. But no one, it was like I was too complicated and there wasn't like a doctor out there that really enjoyed a challenge. That's what I felt. So I lost my mobility, ended up in a wheelchair, and still have no idea why. But then I was diagnosed a year and a half ago, about 2 years ago, and I started medication that slowly gave me some strength back, but I'm not going to be where I was. And that's okay. I think now that I have an answer, just like when I was autistic, right? And I got that diagnosis, I was like, okay, great. I now understand who I am, what my capabilities are, my energy level, how much I can do or can't do. And then I accommodate myself because that's just, the way that life is. So the last thing I would like to kind of end on in terms of this question is that um, mobility aids gave me not just an independence, but they gave me my life back. I was stuck at home, not being able to get out, or I'd go to the car and I sit in the car and my wife goes inside stores and I'm just sitting there like, I want to go inside of a store, but I can't because I don't have the tool to get me inside the store. And some stores don't have the motorized scooters. Sorry, I was just trying to think of the word. And so those stores, you just kind of feel like left out, and you're like, okay, great. But today, I'm still learning how to live with the grief of like my old self, especially on good days where I'm like, oh, I can draw for 5 hours. Okay, well, tomorrow I'll be able to paint. And then that doesn't always happen, and I have to learn. So basically, I'm just like learning the rhythm of my life, And sometimes I have good days and some days I have bad days. I call them good brain days and bad brain days. But either way, I embrace them as is, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's a lot for being pretty much it. Kat, thank you
Yeah,
for being so forthcoming.
of course.
I really appreciate how well and in detail you talk about the changes in your health status and how you've had to adapt to them. Chronic illness is frustratingly dynamic, as you point out in your response. So I guess I'm wondering, what does a disability-friendly future look like for you, someone who has dynamic and chronic needs? I'm interested to
Yes.
hear.
Okay. I love this question. uh, there's so like, just like you said, dynamic. So there's like a multitude of ways that we could approach this question, right? At least in my mind, I can do it. So to me, it's one where like disabled people are valued without needing to prove or explain ourselves, which is a huge sentence in its own. Um, but it's a world where like accessibility is embedded into every decision space system from the start, not like a last minute thought or tacked on later as like, oh well, look, we did create a ramp, but like your ramp's not accessible. I can't get up the ramp in my wheelchair. There's a pole in the way. How do I get through the pole? And how do I, some things like that. And I want to see accessibility as the blueprint, not as the add-on, right? And to me, if we take it another step forward or deeper into it, I'm I'm talking about like building a culture across like every place that every like people gather. People, I want to be seen, I want to be understood, I want to be included. And this even goes like, far into like workspaces where folks need like accommodations, they need a doctor note, and they need all this medical stuff. No, I want flexibility. I want, hey, I'm struggling with the lights. Could we maybe either find like a kind of calming light, or could we just turn off the lights because the windows are bright enough for, sunlight? Something like that. That's flexible, and that's the kind of future I could see. That's the future I would love to support in being a part of. Another step for me to go into this would be like, I think about like a baseball stadium. And for me, I'm not really a baseball person, but I think that this point is important. So you have people that want to go. And typically, accessible seating is not always the best in terms of stadiums. I have experienced that. And it's really loud. Everyone is rowdy and excited, which they're allowed to be. But I want to be in a safer space, a quiet space. So like quiet viewing rooms for people, families, children, like whatever it is. But allow it to be a like a low sensory environment. Same with what was it? I think like airports are starting to do something like that, which is really great to see. Um, I would love to see more theaters offer truly accessible seating, where wheelchair users aren't crammed in like the back corner. Or I had an experience where my wheelchair was lopsided. Like I had to hold my body up and I didn't have the supports to hold myself up on an incline, which is really unfair because one, I'm trying to hold my body up, which is not capable enough to do that. And it's really uncomfortable. Drove an hour and a half. I want to enjoy the thing I came to see instead of struggling with just simply existing, right? Um, I would love to see concert venues, even ones with just simply standing. I recently had an experience with this where they have a couch for people but they didn't have a wheelchair space. So my wife sat on the couch and I sat in front of her, which blocked people from sitting on the couch, which I felt horrible by because there was another woman that was standing next to me who was leaning on my wheelchair, who also has hypermobility EDS. And I felt horrible, like, where do I put myself? And then how could she sit there? So I allowed her to lean on my wheelchair because, like, I understand, I see you. Um, but like have a raised area for people to sit on or be where so they could see the concert venue. Like that's what it's so simple in my mind, but I understand that it's not for people that either don't have disabilities, don't know anyone with disabilities. But like even if we think about it, whatever helps disabled people also helps, say, like children who are short, who can't see over the tall people in front of them to see the concert that they're also there to see, right? Or shorter people, just in general, like you don't have to be a child. It could help them as well, or older people who came with like a cane who also want to be able to see but need to sit down for the whole entire time. It's accommodating that. Again, with the viewing area, you could either have like if you can't do that, you could have like a TV that's live TV that shows the stage of this concert that's happening and allows people to feel included. I don't even need to be in the concert room. I can simply just be outside looking at this TV and I would have been just as excited rather than looking at people's butts and their hoodies and hoping and wishing that I could just like see the concert, except that I couldn't, right? Um, so my vision also extends to the digital world. I would love to see where websites and apps and media are designed with accessibility in mind from the beginning, not things that people have to request or people have to sue over or anything like that, but like truly care about making things accessible and not doing it for like whatever would be the quickest, i.e., widgets. I will say that. That's just one sentence I say. Um, but they aren't accessible. And they also make websites actually inaccessible, and that causes lawsuits, right? So I dream of a disability friendly future where we all get to live, rest, work, and simply belong fully without compromise. And it's a future where we're not just present, but we're centered, we're thought about, and that would be incredible.
But on a really strong note, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You've listed lots of broad goals, especially as relates to accessibility in all its various forms. I really appreciate that. What are some strategies and exact ways that we can get there? How can we make that future a reality?
So we can make that future a reality by shifting from performative inclusion to real lived accessibility. That means listening to disabled people, not just when it's convenient, not when there's a crisis, but always from the beginning. Um, Include us at the table from the very start, whether you're designing a space or planning an event, building a website, rewriting a policy and or a product, right? So like think like we need to be in the very beginning to truly make whatever you're creating and designing and um, advocating for um, truly accessible. We need to move away from like what's the minimum we can do to comply and instead ask how can we make this space genuinely usable and safe and welcome for everyone. Just because it looks like something is accessible but you haven't used a disabled person of some sort to test it out, like if you have a ramp and you're like, hey, we're thinking about it to be like this high, and then I'm saying, hey, I can't wheel up something that's steep. Could we make it a little bit longer so that it's not as steep and it is more usable for people in manual wheelchairs? It's something that simple, and I say it's simple because it really is. But I know people make it to be a lot more complex than it needs to be. Um, I would love to see like normalizing flexibility, how I had said in the other question about just being flexible simply is being accessible in one way or another. No one should be able to jump through hoops and prove their suffering to access the support that they need. Um, because like accessibility isn't just physical, right? It should be deep rooted in the culture, in the environment, in everything. It's about values. I really think that it comes down to that. And it's about um, Okay, that train of thought left, but no one should have to jump through the hoops, right? And so if we can say, what can we do for you, instead of can you prove this deserves to be changed, or can you prove that this really is needed, or something like that. I've heard that question before when I would recommend a change, a simple change that doesn't cost that much money, or something that, like, if you know somebody who's really good with woodworking, could truly make something that could just be like added there. But we have to prove, which is something that if could be eliminated would be great. But then, like, practical steps, build those quiet spaces at large venues, right? And that's not just for neurodivergent folks or disabled folks, but PTSD or anyone who's overwhelmed by sensory input. It doesn't need to be a diagnosis. It just could be a space that's safe for you, that would work best. You paid the money to be there. We want you to be there. Here's the space. Design the theaters and the stadiums with accessible viewing, and consider line of sight, and not just can you physically get inside, but can you truly see? Can you truly experience what you came here to experience? Are you going to be comfortable? And allow disabled people to come in and truly test that out, because that's going to be your deciding factor. Should you move forward and ahead? No, because this didn't work out. Include alternative viewing options, right? At concerts, or even viewing options digitally, right? So there are certain documents that are not accessible, or certain ways that you can write a document that is accessible. Make sure that that is an option. Also, alt text, captions, color contrast, utilize ARIA correctly, um, transcripts, all that sort of things. You need to make sure that you understand that it's important. We need to celebrate disability and diversity, and we need to show that disabled people thriving in spaces, in leadership, in art, in relationships, in joy, right? So, like, as you know, I know that you believe in this as well, but representation is like powerful. And when I know when I see somebody who's disabled included without apology, it challenges that narrative that disability is only about struggle. It's only about oh, we need to cure you. It's more of about, like, just celebrating the pride, disability pride, right? So the last thing I'll leave off with that is, like, to get to that space, we need to lead with empathy. We need to design with intention. We need to trust people's needs and recommendations, and who they just trust who they are. We need to fund accessibility like it truly matters, because it does. And we need to stop waiting for someone else to make the change and start with where we are. Yeah,
Yeah, that's very well considered. Thank you for that answer.
of course.
I think it's very comprehensive and it touches on a lot of different aspects of ways that you see we could easily improve things for disabled people. Thank you again.
Of
All
course.
right. This last question, as our time together draws to a close, allows space and time for something that you and I, as disabled people, so rarely get. And that is a chance to brag about yourself, talk about a recent win or something you have kind of in progress, maybe. If
Mhm.
you want to grow an online following, where can people find you online? But this is just your chance to brag. This is your soapbox. Let's
Oh
hear it.
boy. That's really hard. I know that I have, like, at least things to offer people, right? And sometimes it's really hard to brag and speak highly about myself. But I think maybe the two things for sure that have recently happened that would be fine to highlight is that I did a 2025 neurodiversity conference speaking engagement on being a neurodivergent, non-traditional college student who did not go to college until I was 23 years old, and how self-advocacy and support um, helped me get there and helped me get through that. And it was a really wonderful experience where a lot of the people at college, like disability workers and counselors, didn't even think of some of the things I had suggested. or hope that I could see in the future for colleges to offer disabled students. And it just like took me back, and people were like, this was brilliant. This was like really informative. And I've done a couple of speaking engagements, I've done a lot. And each time everyone's responses to me, it's just like, wow, like I didn't realize, but like every time people do the same thing. So I think I'm good at it. I'll acknowledge that I enjoy it and I love to educate and empower other people. I love to advocate and speak up for things. Um, and then yesterday, I went to see my rheumatologist, who has been absolutely incredible. It is really hard to find a doctor that truly listens, truly believes in you, and like just trust everything you say. So I don't feel like I have to go in there masking. I don't have to feel like I have to come in with armor to protect myself. And it's like the first time. So I wanted to create her art. And I designed, by her recommendations, I created a skull with flowers, and I printed it out and I put it in this very fancy frame to give to her. And her her shock in how amazing this artwork was, I was just like, my eyes were like bugging out of my head, and I got redder than I usually get. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And she was like, I didn't know that you were an artist. And I was like, yeah, fancy that. I do art. She's like, no, you're an artist. And I was like, okay, yes, I'm an artist. So sometimes it's really hard. So I guess the best way to brag about myself, I guess, is that I am a certified professional coach. I am a disability and neurodivergent advocate. I am a digital artist, and I'm relearning about what I can do for people, because I initially had a 9 to 5 job that I cannot do anymore. And I have to relearn to find what I can do and what I could provide to people and how to get paid for that in that way. So, um, yeah. I'm also a teacher. I love to educate people. So anything that can intertwine all the intersectionalities of my life, I love to do that. So where you can find me, LinkedIn, Cat Contillo, Contillo. But I think the URL is linkedin.com/IM/CATTILLO, which is Catillo. And then I have an Etsy account, which is chronicallyempowered.etsy.com. I will be eventually having another website, but currently that's about all I have right now. But yeah, thank you so much.
That's a lot. Thank you so much, Kat.
Of
All
course.
right, folks. This is our disabled future, and it's being built by all of us together. I'm Nico. Thanks for watching, and remember, our future is accessible, inclusive, and unstoppable. Wherever you go, whatever you do, I'm rooting for you, heck, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Thanks.